sufficient for the day. J.J. O'Malley, smiling politely, took up the gauge. "My dear Miles," he said, flinging his cigarette aside, "you put a false construction on my words. I hold no brief, as at present advised, for the third profession quad profession, but your cork legs are running away with you. Why not bring in Henry Grattan, Flood, and Demosthenes, and Edmund Burke? Ignatius Gallaher, we all know him, his chap Elias our boss, Harmsworth of the Farthing Press, and his American cousin of the Bowery gutter sheet, not to mention Paddy Kelly's budget, Pool's occurrences, and our watchful friend the Skibbereen Eagle. Why bring in a master of forensic eloquence like Whiteside? Sufficient for the day is the newspaper thereof. Links of bygone days of your Grattan and Flood wrote for this very paper," the editor cried in his face. "Irish Volunteers. Where are you now? Established 1763. Dr. Lucas. Who have you now, like John Philpott Curran?" "Well," J.J. O'Malley said, "Bush Casey, for example." "Bush?" the editor said. "Well, yes, Bush, yes. He has a strain of it in his blood. Kendall Bush means Emmett Bush. He would have been on the bench long ago," the professor said, "only for—" But no matter. J.J. O'Malley turned to Stephen and said quietly and slowly, "One of the most polished periods I think I ever listened to in my life fell from the lips of Emmett Bush. It was in the case of fratricide, the child's murder case. Bush defended him. And in the porches of mine ear did pour. By the way, how did he find it out? He died in his sleep. Or the other story, beast with two backs." "What was that?" the professor asked. "Italia, a magistrate archime." He spoke on the law of evidence, J.J. O'Malley said, "of Roman justice as contrasted with the earlier Mosaic code, the Lex Talionis." And he cited the Moses of Michelangelo in the Vatican. Hectares. A few echoes and words, Linehan prefaced. Silence. Pause. J.J. O'Malley took out his cigarettekes. False law. Something quite ordinary. Messenger took out his matchbox thoughtfully and lit his cigar. "I have often thought since, on looking back over that strange time, that it was its small act, trivial in itself, that striking of that match, that determined the whole after course of both our lives." A polished period, J.J. O'Malley resumed, molding his words. He said of it, that stony effigy in frozen music, hard and terrible, of the human form divine, that eternal symbol of wisdom and of prophecy which, if aught that the imagination of the hand of sculptor has wrought in marble of soul transfigured and of soul transfiguring, deserves to live, deserves to live. His slim hand with a wave graced echo and fall. "Fine," Miles Crawford said at once. "The diviner Flatus," Mr. O'Maddenberg said. "You like it?" J.J. O'Malley asked Stephen. Stephen, his blood wooed by grace of language and gesture, blushed. He took a cigarette from the case. J.J. O'Malley offered his case to Miles Crawford. Linehan lit their cigarettes as before and took his trophy, saying, "Much best thank of us. A man of high morale, Professor Maginus was speaking to me about you," J.J. O'Malley said to Stephen. "What do you think really of that hermetic crowd, the opal hush poets, a.e. the master mystic? That Blavatsky woman started it. Now she was an old bag of tricks. A.E. has been telling some Yankee interviewer that you came to him in the small hours of the morning to ask him about planes of consciousness. Maginus thinks you must have been pulling A.E.'s leg. He is a man of the very highest morale, Maginus. Speaking about me." What did he say? What did he say? What did he say about me? Don't ask. No, thanks, Professor Mackey said, waving the Chigaritecus aside. Wait a moment. Let me say one thing. The finest display of oratory I ever heard was a speech made by John F. Taylor at the College Historical Society. Mr. Justice Fitzgibbon, the present Lord Justice of Appeal, had spoken in the paper under debate was an essay new for those days, advocating the revival of the Irish tongue. He turned towards Miles Crawford and said, "You know Gerald Fitzgibbon." Then you can imagine the style of his discourse. "He is sitting with Tim Healy," J.J. O'Malley said, rumor has it, on the Trinity College Estates Commission. "He is sitting with a sweet thing," Miles Crawford said, "in a child's frock." Go on. Well? It was a speech, mark you, the professor said, of a finished orator, full of courteous haughtiness and pouring in chastened diction. I will not say the vials of his wrath, but pouring the proud man's contumely upon the new movement. It was then a new movement. We were weak, therefore worthless. He closed his long thin lips an instant, but, eager to be on, raised an outspanned hand to his spectacles and, with trembling thumb and ring finger touching lightly the black rims, steadied them to a new focus. In prompt and fairy tone he addressed J.J. O'Malley. Taylor had come there, you must know, from a sick. That he had prepared his speech I do not believe, for there was not even one shorthand writer in the hall. His dark lean face had a growth of shaggy beard around it. He wore a loose white silk neckcloth, and altogether he looked, though he was not, a dying man. His gaze turned at once but slowly from J.J. O'Malley's towards Stephen's face and then bent at once to the ground, seeking. His unglazed linen collar appeared behind his bent head, soiled by his withering hair. Still seeking, he said, when Fitzgibbon's speech had ended. John F. Taylor rose to reply. Briefly, as well as I can bring them to mind, his words were these. He raised his head firmly. His eyes bethought themselves once more. Witless shellfish swam in the gross lenses to and fro, seeking outlet. He began, "Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, great was my admiration in listening to the remarks addressed to the youth of Ireland a moment since by my learned friend. It seemed to me that I had been transported into a country far away from this country, into an age remote from this age, that I stood in ancient Egypt and that I was listening to the speech of some hip priest of that land addressed to the youthful Moses. His listeners held their cigarettes poised to hear, their smokes ascending in frail stalks that flowered with his speech. And lit our crooked smokes. Noble words coming. Look out. Could you try your hand at it yourself? And it seemed to me that I heard the voice of that Egyptian hip priest raised in a tone of like haughtiness and like pride. I heard his words and their meaning was revealed to me. From the fathers it was revealed to me that those things are good which yet are corrupted, which neither if they were supremely good nor unless they were good could be corrupted. Ah, curse ye. That's Saint Augustine. Why will you Jews not accept our culture, our religion and our language? You are a tribe of nomad herdsmen, we are a mighty people. You have no cities nor no wealth. Our cities are hives of humanity and our galleys, trireme and quadrireme, laden with all manner of merchandise, furrow the waters of the known globe. You have but emerged from primitive conditions. We have a literature, a priesthood, an age-long history and a polity. Now, child, man, effigy. By the Nile bank the bat Mary's kneel, cradle at bulrushes. A man supple in combat, stone-horned, stone-bearded, hard as stone, pray to local and obscure idol, our temples, majestic and mysterious, are the abodes of Isis and Osiris, of Horus and Amun-Ra. Your serfdom, on humbleness, ours thunder in the seas. Israel is weak and few are her children, Egypt is an host and terrible are her arms. Vagrants and day laborers are ye called, the world trembles at her name. A dumb belch of hunger cleft his speech. He lifted his voice above it boldly, but, ladies and gentlemen, had the youthful Moses listened to and accepted that view of life, had he bowed his head and bowed his will and bowed his spirit before the arrogant admonition, he would never have brought the chosen people out of their house of bondage, nor followed the pillar of the cloud by day. He would never have spoken with the eternal amid lightnings on Sinai's mountain top, nor ever have come down with the light of inspiration shining in his countenance and bearing in his arms the tables of the law, graven in the language of the outlaw. He ceased and looked at them, enjoying a silence ominous for him. J.J. O'Malley said not without regret, and yet he died without having entered the land of promise. As sudden at the moment from lingering illness often previously expected demise, Lena had added, and with a great future behind him. The troop of bare feet was heard rushing along the hallway and pattering up the staircase. That is oratory, the professor said uncontradicted. Gone with the wind. Hosts at Mullagmast and terror of the kings. Miles of ears of porches. The tribune's words, held and scattered to the four winds. A people sheltered within his voice. Dead noise. A Cossack records of all that ever anywhere wherever was. Love and law him, me no more. I have money. Gentlemen, Stephen said. As the next motion on the agenda paper, may I suggest that the House do now adjourn? You take my breath away. It is not perchance a French compliment. Mr. O'Maddenberg asked. 'Tis the hour, things, when the whiny jug, metaphorically speaking, is most grateful in your ancient hostelry. Be that it hereby is resolutely resolved. All that are in favor say, Lenehan announced. The contrary, no. I declare it carried. To which particular boosting shed. My casting vote is, Mooney's. He led the way, admonishing, we will sternly refuse to partake of strong waters, will we not? Yes, we will not. By no manner of means. Mr. O'Maddenberg, following close, said with an ally's lunge of his umbrella, lay on, Macduff. Chip of the old block. The editor cried, clapping Stephen on the shoulder. Let us go. Where are those blasted keys? He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out the crushed tip of sheets. Foot and mouth. I know. That'll be all right. That'll go in. Where are they? That's all right. He thrust the sheets back and went to the inner office. Let U.S. Hope J.J. O'Malley, about to follow him in, said quietly to Stephen, I hope you will live to see it published. Miles, one moment. He went into the inner office, closing the door behind him. Come along, Stephen, the professor said. That is fine, isn't it? It has the prophetic vision. The sagged windy Troy. Kingdoms of this world. The masters of the Mediterranean are failing today. The first newsboy came pattering down the stairs at their heels and rushed out into the street, yelling, Racing Special. Dublin. I have much to learn. They turned to the left along Abbey Street. I have a vision too, Stephen said. Yes. The professor said, skipping to get into step. Crawford will follow. Another newsboy shot past them, yelling as he ran, Racing Special. Dear dirty Dublin Dubliners. 2 Dublin Vestals, Stephen said, elderly and pious, have lived 50 and 53 years in Fun Valley's Lane. Where's the professor asked. Off Black Pit, Stephen said. Damn, not reeking of hunger though. Against the wall. Face glistering tallow under her fustian shawl. Frantic hearts. A Cossack records. Quicker, darling. On now. Dare it. Let there be life. They want to see the views of doubling from the top of Nelson's Pillar. They save up 3 and 10 pence in a red tin letterbox money box. They shake out the threepenny bits and the sixpences and coax out the pennies with the blade of a knife. 2 and 3 in silver and 1 and 7 in coppers. They put on their bonnets and best clothes and take their umbrellas for fear it may come on to rain. Wise virgins, Professor Mackey said. Life on their all buy 1 and 4pence worth of brawn and 4 slices of pan loaf at the North City dining rooms in Marlborough Street from Miss Kate Collins, pro-preatress. They purchased 4 and 20 ripe plums from a girl at the foot of Nelson's Pillar to take off the thirst of the brawn. They give 2 threepenny bits to their gentlemen at the turnstile and begin to waddle slowly up the winding staircase, grunting, encouraging each other, afraid of the dark, panting, one asking the other have you the brawn, praising God and the Blessed Virgin, threatening to come down, peeping at the air slits. Glory be to God. They had no idea it was that high. Their names are Ann Kearns and Florence McCabe. Ann Kearns has no lumbago for which she rubs on Lord's water, given her by a lady who got a bottle full from her passionate father. Florence McCabe takes a crubine and a bottle of double X for supper every Saturday. Antithesis, the professor said, nodding twice. Vestal virgins. I can see them. What's keeping our friend? He turned. A bevy of scampering newsboys rushed down the steps, scattering in all directions, yelling, the white papers fluttering. Hard after them Miles Crawford appeared on the steps, his hair aureoling his scarlet face, talking with J.J. O'Malley. Come along, the professor cried, waving his arm. He set off again to walk by Stephen's side. Return of Bloom, yes, he said. I see them. Mr. Bloom, breathless, caught in a whirl of wild newsboys near the office of the Irish Catholic and Dublin Penny Journal, called Mr. Crawford. A moment. Telegraph. Racing special. What is it? Miles Crawford said, falling back a pace. A newsboy cried in Mr. Bloom's face. Terrible tragedy in Rathmans. A child bit by bellows. Interview with the editor just this at, Mr. Bloom said, pushing through towards the steps, puffing, and taking the cutting from his pocket. I spoke with Mr. Keyes just now. He'll give a renewal for 2 months, he says. After he'll see. But he wants it to call attention in the Telegraph too, the Saturday Pen. And he wants to cop it if it's not too late. I told Councillor Nunetti from the Kilkenny People. I can have access to it in the National Library. House of Keys, don't you see? His name is Keyes. It's a play on the name. But he practically promised he'd give the renewal. But he wants just a little puff. What will I tell him, Mr. Crawford? May we tell him he can kiss my arse? Miles Crawford said, throwing out his arm for emphasis. Tell him that straight from the stable. A bit nervy. Look out for squalls. I'll offer a drink. Arm in arm. Linehan's yachting cap on the cadge beyond. Usual Barney. Wonders that young Daedalus the moving spirit. Has a good pair of boots on him today. Last time I saw him he had his heels on view. Been walking in muck somewhere. Careless chap. What was he doing in Irish Town? Well, Mr. Bloom said, his eyes returning, if I can get the design I suppose it's worth a shower at par. He'd give the ad, I think. I'll tell him. KMRIA he can kiss my Royal Irish R's, Miles Crawford cried loudly over his shoulder. Any time he likes, tell him. While Mr. Bloom stood weighing the point and about to smile he strode on jerkily. Raising the wind nula bona, Jack, he said, raising his hand to his chin. I'm up to here. I've been through the hoop myself. I was looking for a fella to back a bill for me no later than last week. Sorry, Jack. You must take the will for the deed. With a heart and a half if I could raise the wind anyhow. J.J. O'Malley pulled a long face and walked on silently. They caught up on the others and walked abreast. When they have eaten the brawn and the bread and wiped their 20 fingers in the paper the bread was wrapped in, they go near to the railings. Something for you, the professor explained to Miles Crawford. 2 old Dublin women on the top of Nelson's pillar. Some call him. That's what Wadler one said, that's new, Miles Crawford said. That's copy. Out for the waxy struggle. 2 old trickies, what? But they are afraid the pillar will fall, Stephen went on. They see the roofs and argue about where the different churches are, Rathman's Blue Dome, Adam and Eve's, St. Lawrence O'Toole's. But it makes them get it a look so they pull up their skirts. Those slightly rambunctious females easy all, Miles Crawford said. No poetic license. We're in the archdiocese here. And settled down on their striped petticoats, peering up at the statue of the unhandled adulterer. Unhandled adulterer. The professor cried. I like that. I see the idea. I see what you mean. Dames do not Dublin speak pills velo shudis belief gives them a crick in their necks, Stephen said, and they're too tired to look up or down or to speak. They put the bag of plums between them and eat the plums out of it, one after another, wiping off with their handkerchiefs the plum juice that dribbles out of their mouths and spitting the plum stones slowly out between the railings. He gave a sudden loud young laugh as a close. Linehan and Mr. O'Maddenberg, hearing, turned, beckoned and led on across towards Mooney's. Finished, Miles Crawford said. So long as they do no worse. Sophist Wallops haughty held and square on, proboscis. Spartans gnash molars. Athenians vow pen as champ. You remind me of Antisthenes, the professor said, a disciple of Gorgias, the sophist. It is said of him that none could tell if he were bitter against others or against himself. He was the son of a noble and a bondwoman. And he wrote a book in which he took away the palm of beauty from her of Helen and handed it to poor Penelope. Poor Penelope. Penelope rich. They made ready to cross O'Connell Street. Hello there, Central. At various points along the 8 lines tram cars with motionless trolleys stood in their tracks, bound for or from Rathmans, Rathfarnham, Blackrock, Kingsdown and Dalkey, Sandymount Green, Ringsend Sandymount Tower, Donnybrook, Palmerston Park and Upper Rathmans, all still, becalmed in short circuit. Hackney cars, cabs, delivery wagons, mailvans, private broughams, aerated mineral logs with rattling crates of bottles, rattled, rolled, horse-drawn, rapidly. What? And likewise where? But what do you call it? Miles Crawford asked. Where did they get the plums? Virgilian, says pedagogue. Sophomore plums for old man Moses. Call it, wait, the professor said, opening his long lips wide to reflect. Call it, let me see. Call it, Des Nobis Haec Ocean Fest. No, Stephen said. I call it a Pasgosite of Palestine, or the parable of the plums. I see, the professor said. He laughed richly. I see, he said again with new pleasure. Moses in the Promised Land. We gave him that idea, he added to J.J. O'Malley. Horatio was sent elsewhere this fair June day. J.J. O'Malley sent a weary sidelong glance towards the statue and held his peace. I see, the professor said. He halted on Sir John Gray's pavement island and peered aloft at Nelson through the meshes of his wry smile. Diminished digits proved too titillating for frisky frums and wimbles, flo wangles, yet can you blame them? Unhandled adulterer, he said, smiling grimly. That tickles me, I must say. Tickled the old ones too, Miles Crawford said, if the God Almighty's truth was known. Pineapple Rock, Lemon Platt, Butterscotch. A cigar-sticky girl shoveling scoopfuls of creams for a Christian brother. Some school treat. Bad for their tummies. Lozenge and comfort manufactured to His Majesty the King. God save her. Sitting on his throne sucking red jujubes white. A somber YMCA young man, watchful among the warm sweet fumes of Graham lemons, placed a throwaway in a hand of Mr. Bloom. Heart-to-heart talks. Blue. Me? No. Blood of the Lamb. His slow feet walked him riverward, reading. Are you saved? All are washed in the blood of the Lamb. God wants blood victim. Birth, hymen, martyr, war, foundation of a building, sacrifice, kidney burnt offering, Druid's altars. Elijah is coming. Dr. John Alexander Dowie, restorer of the church in Zion, is coming. Is coming. Is coming. Is coming. All heartily welcome. Pan game. Tory and Alexander last year. Polygamy. His wife will put the stopper on that. Where was that Edson Birmingham firm, the luminous crucifix? Our Savior. Wake up in the dead of night and see him on the wall, hanging. Pepper's ghost idea. Iron nails ran in. Phosphorus it must be done with. If you leave a bit of codfish, for instance, I could see the bluey silver over it. Night I went down to the pantry in the kitchen. Don't like all the smells in it waiting to rush out. What was it she wanted? The Malaga raisins. Thinking of Spain. Before Rudy was born. The phosphorescence, that bluey greeny. Very good for the brain. From Butler's Monument House corner he glanced along Bachelor's Walk. Deedless daughter, they're still outside Dillon's auction rooms. Must be selling off some old furniture. Knew her eyes at once from the father. Lobbing about waiting for him. Home always breaks up when the mother goes. 15 children he had. Birth every year almost. That's in their theology, or the priest won't give the poor woman the confession, the absolution. Increase and multiply. Did you ever hear such an idea? Eat you out of house and home. No families themselves to feed. Living on the fat of the land. Their butteries and larders. I'd like to see them do the black fast Yom Kippur. Cross buns. 1 meal and a collation for fear he'd collapse on the altar. A housekeeper of one of those fellows, if you could pick it out of her. Never pick it out of her. Like getting else. Out of him. does himself well. No guests. Offer number 1. Watching his water. Bring your own bread and butter. His reverence mums the word. Good Lord, that poor child's dress is in flinders. Underfed she looks too. Potatoes and Marge and potatoes. It's after they feel it. Proof of the pudding. Undermines the Constitution. As he set foot on O'Connell Bridge, a puffball of smoke plumed up from the parapet. Brewery barge with export stout. England. See air sours it, I heard. Be interesting someday get a pass through Hancock to see the brewery. Regular world in itself. The vats of port are wonderful. Rats get to drink themselves bloated as big as a collie floating. Dead drunk on the porter. Drink till they puke again like Christians. Imagine drinking that. Rats, vats. Well, of course, if we knew all the things. Looking down he saw flapping strongly, wheeling between the Gonquay walls, gulls. Rough weather outside. If I threw myself down. Reuben J's son must have swallowed a good bellyful of that sewage. 1 of 8pence too much. H.M. It's the droll way he comes out with the things. Knows how to tell a story too. Then we'll lower. Looking for grub. Wait. He threw down among them a crumpled paper ball. Elijah 30 feet per second is calm. Not a bit. The ball bobbed unheeded on the wake of swells, floated under by the bridge piers. Not such damn fools. Also the day I threw that stale kick out of the Aaron's King picked it up in the wake 50 yards astern. Live by their wits. They wheeled, flapping. The hungry famished gulf laps over the water's dull. That is how poets write, the similar sounds. But then Shakespeare has no rhymes, blank verse. The flow of the language it is. The thoughts. Solemn. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit doomed for certain time to walk the earth. 2 apples a penny. 2 for a penny. His gaze passed over the glazed apples serried on her stand. Australians they must be this time of year. Shiny peels, polishes them up with a rag or a handkerchief. Wait. Those poor birds. He halted again and bought from the old apple woman 2 banberry cakes for a penny and broke the brittle paste and threw its fragments down into the Lafitte. See that. The gulls swooped silently, too, then all from their heights, pouncing on prey. Gone. Every morsel. Aware of their greed and cunning, he shook the powdery crumb from his hands. They never expected that. Manna. Live on fish, fishy flesh they have, I'll say birds, gulls, sea goose. Swans from Andelphi swim down here sometimes to preen themselves. No accounting for taste. Wonder what kind of swan meat. Robinson Crusoe had to live on them. They wheeled flapping weakly. I'm not going to throw any more. Penny quite enough. Lot of thinks I get. Not even a cough. The spread foot and mouth disease too. If you cram a turkey sail on chestnut meal it tastes like that. Eat pig like pig. But then why is it that saltwater fish are not salty? How is that? His eyes sought answer from the river and saw a rowboat rock at anchor on the trickly swells lazily its plastered board. Kino's 11/dash trousers good idea that. Wonder if he pays rent to the corporation. How can you own water really? It's always flowing in the stream, never the same, which in the stream of life would trace. Because life is a stream. All kinds of places are good for ads. That quack doctor for the clap used to be stuck up in all the greenhouses. Never see it now. Strictly confidential. Dr. High for ranks. Didn't cost him a red like McGeaney the dancing master self-advertisement. Got fellows to stick them up or stick them up himself for that matter on the QT. Running and to loosen a button. Fly by night. Just the place to post no bills. Post 110 pills. Some chap with a dose burning him. If he. Oh? Eh? No. No. No, no. I don't believe it. He wouldn't surely. No, no. Mr. Bloom moved forward, raising his old eyes. Think no more about that. After one. Tim ball on the balustrade is down. Done sink time. Fascinating little book is of Sir Robert Ball's Parallax. I never exactly understood. There's the priest. Could ask him. Parts Greek, parallel, parallax. Met him pike holes as she called it till I told her about the transmigration. Oh rocks. Mr. Bloom smiled. Oh rocks at two windows of the balustrade. She's right after all. Only big words for ordinary things on account of the sound. She's not exactly witty. Can be rude too. Blurt out what I was thinking. Still, I don't know. She used a $7 had a bass bar alto voice. He has legs like bears and you'd think he was singing into a barrel. Now, isn't that wit? They used to call him Big Ben. Not half as witty as calling him bass bar alto. Appetite like an albatross. Get outside of a baron of beef. Powerful man he was at stowing away #1 bass. Barrel of bass. See. It all works out. A procession of white-smocked sandwichmen marched slowly towards him along the gutter, scarlet sashes across their boards. Bargains. Like that priest there this morning, we have sinned, we have suffered. He read the scarlet letters on their 5 tall white hats, HELYS wisdom please, while lagging behind drew a chunk of bread from under his fretboard, crammed it into his mouth and munched as he walked. Our staple food. 3 bob a day, walking along the gutters, street after street. Just keep skin and bone together, bread and skilly. They're not boil, no, him Glade's man. Doesn't bring in any business either. I suggested to him about a transparent showcase with 2 smart girls sitting inside writing letters, copybooks, envelopes, blotting paper. I bet that would have caught on. Smart girls writing something catch the eye at once. Everyone dying to know what she's writing. Get 20 of them round you if you stare at nothing. Have a finger in the pie. Women too. Curiosity. Pillar of salt. Wouldn't have it of course because he didn't think of it himself first. Or the ink bottle I suggested with a foil stain of black celluloid. His ideas for ads like plum trees potted under the obituaries, cold meat department. You can't lick 'em. What? Our envelopes? Hello, Jones, where are you going? Can't stop, Robinson. I am hastening to purchase the only reliable ink eraser cancel, sold by Ulysses Limited, 85 Dame Street. Well out of that ruck I am. Devil of a job it was collecting accounts of those convents. Tranquilla Convent. That was a nice nun there, really sweet face. Wimple suited her small head. Sister, sister. I am sure she was crossed in love by her eyes. Very hard to bargain with that sort of a woman. I disturbed her at her devotions that morning, but glad to communicate with the outside world. Our great day, she said. Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Sweet name too, Caramel. She knew I think she knew by the way if she had married she would have changed. I suppose they really were short of money. Fried everything and the best butter all the same. No lard for them. My heart's broke eating dripping. They like buttering themselves in and out. Molly tasting it, her veil up. Sister. Pat Claffey, the pawnbroker's daughter. It was a nun they say invented barbed wire. He crossed Westmoreland Street when apostrophes had plodded by. Rover Cycle Shop. Those races are on today. How long ago was that? Year Phil Gilligan died. We were in Lombard Street West. Wait, wasn't Tom's? Got the job in Wisdom Please the year we married. 6 years. 10 years ago, 94 he died. Yes, that's right, the big fire at Arnott's. Val Dillon was Lord Mayor. The Glen Creed dinner. Alderman Robert O'Reilly emptying the port into his soup before the flag fell. Bob lapping it for the inner alderman. Couldn't hear what the band played. For what we have already received may the Lord make us. Millie was a kiddie then. Molly had that elephant gray dress with the braided frogs. Tailored with self-covered buttons. She didn't like it because I sprained my ankle first day she wore choir picnic at the Sugarloaf. As if that. Old Goodwin's tall hat done up with some sticky stuff. Fly's picnic too. Never put a dress on her back like it. Fitted her like a glove, shoulders and hips. Just beginning to plump it out well. Rabbit pie we had that day. People looking after her. Happy. Happier than. Snug little room that was with the red wallpaper. Dokers, one or new nipples a dozen. Millie's tubbing night. American soap I bought, elderflower. Cozy smell of her bath water. Funny she looked so aped all over. Shapely too. Now photography. Poor Papa's dog area type 8 earlier he told me off. Hereditary taste. He walked along the curbstone. Stream of life. What was the name of that pristine-looking chap was always squinting in when he passed? Weak eyes, woman. Stopped in such insane Kevin's parade. Pin something. Pin Dennis. My memory is getting. Pin. Of course it's years ago. Noise of the trams probably. Well, if he couldn't remember the day father's name that he sees every day. Bartail Darcy was the tenor, just coming up then. Seeing her home after practice. Conceited fellow with his waxed mustache. Gave her that song Winds That Blow from the South. Windy night those I went to fetch her. There was a lodge meeting on about those lottery tickets after Goodwin's concert in the super room of the mansion house. He and I behind. Sheet of her music blew out of my hand against the high school railings. Lucky it didn't. Thing like that spoils the effect of a night for her. Professor Goodwin linking her in front. Shaky on his pins, poor old soap. His farewell concerts. Positively last appearance on any stage. Maybe for months and maybe for never. Remember her laughing at the wind, her blizzard collar up. corner of Harcourt Road. Remember the gust. Brafoo blew up all her skirts and her boa nearly smothered old Goodwin. She'd get flushed in the wind. Remember when we got home raking up the fire and frying up those pieces of lap mutton for her supper with the chutney sauce she liked? And the mold around. Could see her in the bedroom from the hearth unclamping the bust of her stays, white, swishing the soft flop her stays made on the bed. Always warm from her. Always liked to let herself out. Sitting there after till near 2 taking out her hairpins. Millie tucked up in Beatty house. Happy. Happy. That was the night. Oh, Mr. Bloom, how do you do? Oh, how do you do, Mrs. Breen? No use complaining. How is all those times? Haven't seen her for ages. In the pink, Mr. Bloom said gaily. Millie has a position down in Mullinger, you know. Go away. Isn't it grand for her? Yes. And a photographer's there. Getting on like a house on fire. How are all your charges? All on the baker's list, Mrs. Breen said. How many has she? No other in sight. You're in black, I see. You have no. No, Mr. Bloom said. I have just come from a funeral. Going to crop up all day, I foresee. Who's dead, when and what did he die of? Turn up like a bad penny. Oh, dear me, Mrs. Breen said. I hope it wasn't any near relation. May as well get her sympathy. Dignam, Mr. Bloom said. An old friend of mine. He died quite suddenly, poor fellow. Hard trouble, I believe. Funeral was this morning. Your funeral's tomorrow while you're coming through the rye. Diddle-a-deedle-dum-dum diddle-a-deedle. Sad to lose the old friends, Mrs. Breen's woe Manning said melancholily. Now that's quite enough about that. Just, quietly, husband. And your lord and master? Mrs. Breen turned up her 2 large eyes. Hasn't lost them anyhow. Oh, don't be talking, she said. He's a caution to rattlesnakes. He's in there now with his law books finding out the law of libel. He has me heart scalded. Wait till I show you. Hot white turtle of pouring the steam of new-baked jam puffs flippantly poured out from Harrison's. The heavy noon heat tickled the top of Mr. Bloom's gullet. Want to make good pastry, butter, best flour, demure sugar, or they taste it with the hot tea. Or is it from her? A barefoot Arab stood over the grating, breathing in the fumes. Deaden the gnaw of hunger that way. Pleasure or pain is it? Penny dinner. Knife and fork chained to the table. Opening her handbag, chipped leather. Happen, ought to have a guard on those things. Stick it in a chap sign in the tray. Rummaging. Open. Money. Please take one. Devils if they lose 6pence. Raise Cain. Husband barging. Where's the 10 shillings I gave you on Monday? Are you feeding your little brother's family? Soiled handkerchief, methus in a bottle. Pay still that was fell. What is she? There must be a new moon out, she said. He's always bad then. Do you know what he did last night? Her hand ceased to rummage. Her eyes fixed themselves on him, wide in alarm, yet smiling. What? Mr. Bloom asked. Let her speak. Look straight in her eyes. I believe you. Trust me. Woke me up in the night, she said. Dream he had, a nightmare. Indulges. Said the ace of spades was walking up the stairs. The ace of spades, Mr. Bloom said. She took a folded postcard from her handbag. Read that, she said. He got it this morning. What is it? Mr. Bloom asked, taking the card. Up. Dash up, she said. Someone taking a rise out of him. It's a great shame for them, whoever he is. Indeed it is, Mr. Bloom said. She took back the card, sighing. And now he's going round to Mr. Menton's office. He's going to take an action for £10,000, he says. She folded the card into her untidy bag and snapped the catch. Same blue serge dress she had 2 years ago, the nap bleaching. Seen its best days. Wispish hair over her ears, and that dowdy talk, 3 old grapes to take the harm out of it. Shabby genteel. She used to be a tasty dresser. Lines round her mouth. Only so older than Molly. See the eye that woman gave her, passing. Cruel. The unfair sex. He looked still at her, holding back behind his look his discontent. Pungent mock turtle oxtail mulligatawny. I'm hungry too. Flakes of pastry on the gusset of her dress, daub of sugary flour stuck to her cheek. Rhubarb tart with liberal fillings, rich fruit interior. Josie Powell it was. In Luke Doyle's long ago. Dolphin's Barn, the charades. Up. Change the subject. Do you ever see anything of Mrs. Beaufoy? Mr. Bloom asked. Mina Purefoy, she said. Philip Beaufoy, I was thinking. Playgoers Club. Matcham often thinks of the master stroke. Did I pull the chain? Yes. The last act? Yes. I just called to ask on the way to Shilrit. She's in the Lying Hospital in Hull Street. Dr. Horn got her in. She's 3 days bad now. Oh, Mr. Bloom said. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, Mrs. Breen said. And a house full of kids at home. It's a very stiff birth, the nurse told me. Dash old, Mr. Bloom said. His heavy pitying gaze absorbed her news. His tongue clacked in compassion. DTH. I am sorry to hear that, he said. Poor thing. 3 days. That's terrible for her. Mrs. Breen nodded. She was taken bad on the Tuesday. Mr. Bloom touched her funny bone gently, warning her, mind. Let this man pass. A bony form strode along the curbstone from the river, staring with a rapt gaze into the sunlight through a heavy stringed glass. Tight as a sculpus, a tiny hat gripped his head. From his arm a folded dust coat, a stick and an umbrella dangled to his stride. Watch him, Mr. Bloom said. He always walks outside the lamppost. Watch. Who is he, if it's a fair question? Mrs. Breen asked. Is he a dotty? His name is Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisnell Farrell, Mr. Bloom said, smiling. Watch. He has enough of them, she said. Dennis will be like that one of these days. She broke off suddenly. There he is, she said. I must go after him. Goodbye. Remember me to Molly, won't you? I will, Mr. Bloom said. He watched her dodge through passers towards the shop fronts. Dennis Breen in skimpy frock coat and blue canvas shoes shuffled out of Harrison's, hugging 2 heavy tomes to his ribs. blown in from the bay. Like old times. He suffered her to overtake him without surprise and thrust his dull gray beard towards her, his loose jaw wagging as he spoke earnestly. May shug off his chump. Mr. Bloom walked on again easily, seeing ahead of him in sunlight the tight sculpus, the dangling stick umbrella dust coat. Going the 2 days. Watch him. Out he goes again. One way of getting on in the world. And that other old mosey lunatic in those duds. Hard time she must have with him. Up. I'll take my oath that South Bergen or Richie Goulden wrote it for a lark in the Scotch house, I bet anything. Round to Minton's office. His oyster eyes staring at the postcard. Be a feast for the gods. He passed the Irish Times. There might be other answers lying there. Like to answer them all. Good system for criminals. Code. At the lunch now. Clerk with the glasses there doesn't know me. Oh, leave them there this summer. Enough bother waiting through a 44 of them. Wanted, smart lady typist to a gentleman in literary work. I called you naughty darling because I do not like that other world. Please tell me what is the meaning. Please tell me what perfume is your wife. Tell me who made the world. The way they spring those questions on you. And the other one was a twink. My literary efforts have had the good fortune to meet with the approval of the eminent poet A.E. Mr. George Russell. No time to do her hair drinking sloppy tea with a book of poetry. Best paper by long chalks for a small ad. Got the provinces now. Cook in general, cuisine, housemaid kept. Wanted live man for spirit counter. Rest. Girl Arcee wishes to hear of posting fruit or pork chop. James Carlyle made that 6.5% dividend. Made a big deal on Coates's shares. Canny. Cunning old Scotch hunks. All the toady news. Our gracious and popular viceroy. Bought the Irish field now. Lady Mountcashel has quite recovered after her confinement and rode out with the Ward Union staghounds at the enlargement yesterday at Ratholt. Uneatable fox. Paw thunders too. Fair injects juices make it tender enough for them. Riding astride. Sit her horse like a man. Weight carrying huntress. No side to saddle or pillion for her, not fragile. First to the meet and then at the death. Strong as a brood mare, some of those horsey women. Swagger around livery stables. Toss off a glass of brandy and eat while you'd say knife. That one at the Grosvenor this morning. Up with her on the car, wish swish. Stonewall or Fibre Gate put her mount to it. Think that pug-nosed driver did it out of spite. Who was that she was like? Oh yes. Mrs. Miriam Dandre that sold me her old wraps and black underclothes in the Shelburne Hotel. Divorced Spanish-American. Didn't take a feather out of her my handling them. As if I was her clothes horse. Saw her in the Vice-Regla party when Stubbs the park ranger got me in with Wellen of the Express. Scavenging what the quality left. Hot tea. Mayonnaise I poured on the plums thinking it was custard. Her ears ought to have tingled for a few weeks after. Want to be a bull for her. Born Codesson. No nursery work for her, thanks. Poor Mrs. Purefoy. Methodist husband. Method in his madness. Saffron bone and milk and soda lunch in the educational dairy. YMCA eating with a stopwatch, 30 to choose to the minute. And still his mud on cop whiskers grew. supposed to be well connected. Theodore's cousin in Dublin Castle. One Tony relative in every family. Party annuals he presents her with. Saw him out at the three jolly toppers marching along bareheaded and his eldest boy carrying one in a market net. The squalors. Poor thing. Then having to give the breast year after year all hours of the night. Selfish those T.Ts are. Dog in the manger. Only one lump of sugar in my tea, if you please. He stood at Fleet Street crossing. Luncheon interval. A sixpenny at Rose. Must look up that ad in the National Library. An eightpenny in the Burton. Better. On my way. He walked on past Bolton's Westmoreland House. Tea. I forgot to tap Tom Kernan. SSS. DTH. 3 days. Imagine groaning on the bed with a vinegared handkerchief round her forehead, her belly swollen out. Phew. Dreadful simply. Child's head too big, forceps. Doubled up inside her trying to buzz out blindly, groping for the way out. Kill me that would. Lucky Molly got over hers lightly. They ought to invent something to stop that. Life with hard labor. Twilight sleep idea, Queen Victoria was given that. None she had. A good layer. Old woman that lived in a shoe she had so many children. Suppose he was consumptive. Time someone thought about it instead of gassing about the what was it the pensive bosom of the silver effulgence. Flapdoodle to feed fools on. They could easily have big establishments, whole thing quite painless out of all the taxes, give every child born 5 quid a compound interest up to 5% is 100 shillings and 5 tiresome pounds multiply by 20 decimal system, encourage people to put by money, save 110 and a bit 21 years want to work it out on paper, come to a tidy sum more than you think. Not still borrowing, of course. They are not even registered. Trouble for nothing. Funny sight, 2 of them together, their bellies out. Molly and Mrs. Moiselle. Mother's meeting. The sis retires for the time being, then returns. How flat they look all of a sudden after. Peaceful eyes. Weight off their mind. Old Mrs. Thornton was a jolly old soul. All my babies, she said. The spoon of pap in her mouth before she fed them. Oh, that's Neil. Got her hand crushed by old Tom Wall's son. His first bug to the public. Head like a prize pumpkin. Snuffy Dr. Merton. People knocking them up at all hours. For God's sake, doctor. Wife in her throes. Then keep them waiting months for their fee. To attendance on your wife. No gratitude in people. Humane doctors, most of them. Before the huge high door of the Irish House of Parliament a flock of pigeons flew. Their little frolic after meals. Who will we do it on? I picked the fellow in black. Here goes. Here's good luck. Must be thrilling from the air. At John, myself and Owen Goldberg up in the trees near Goose Green playing the monkeys. Mackerel they called me. A squad of constables debouched from College Street, marching in Indian file. Goose step. Food-heated faces, sweating helmets, patting their truncheons. After their feed with a good load of fat soup under their belts. Policeman's lot is off the happy one. They split up in groups and scattered, saluting, towards their beats. Let out to graze. Best moment to attack one in pudding time. A punch in his dinner. A squad of others, marching irregularly, rounded Trinity railings making for the station. Bound for their troughs. Prepare to receive cavalry. Prepare to receive soup. He crossed under Tommy Moore's roguish finger. They did right to put him up over here on a mating of the waters. Ought to be places for women. Running into khaki ships. Settle my hat straight. There is not in this wide world a valley. Great song of Julia Morkins. Kept her voice up to the very last. Pupil of Michael Bale's, wasn't she? He gazed after the last broad tunic. Nasty customs to tackle. Jack Power could tell unfold, father a G-man. If a fellow gave them trouble being lagged, they let him have it hot and heavy in the breadwool. Can't blame them after all with the job they have, especially the young hornies. That horse policeman the day Joe Chamberlain was given his degree in Trinity, he got a run for his money. My word, he did. His horse's hooves clattering after us down Abbey Street. Lucky I had the presence of mind to dive into Manning's or I was soup. He'd have come a wallop, by George. Must have cracked his skull on the cobblestones. I oughtn't to have got myself swept along with those medicals. And the Trinity dubs and their mortar boards. Looking for trouble. Still I got to know that young Dixon who dressed at Sting for me in the Mater, and now he's in Hull Street where Mrs. Purefoy. Wheels within wheels. Police whistle in my ears still. All skedaddle. Why he fixed on me. Give me in charge. Right here it began. Up the bowers. 3 cheers for DeWitt. We'll hang Joe Chamberlain on the sour apple tree. Silly billies, mob of young cubs yelling their guts out. Vinegar Hill. The butter exchange band. Few years' time, half of them magistrates and civil servants. War comes on, into the army helter-skelter, same fellows used to. Whether on the scaffold high. Never know who you were talking to. Corny Kilhurty has Harvey Duff in his eye. Looked at Peter or Dennis or James Carey that blew the gaff on the Invincibles. Member of the corporation too. Egging raw youths on to get the know all the time, drawing Secret Service pay from the castle. Drop him like a hot potato. Why those plainclothes men are always courting Slaves. Easily twig a man who used the uniform. Square pushing up against a back door. Maul her a bit. Then the next thing on the menu. And who was the gentleman does be visiting there? Was the young master saying anything? Peeping Tom through the keyhole. Dig or duck. Hot-blooded young student fooling round her fat arms ironing. Are those yours, Mary? I don't wear such things. Stop or I'll tell the missus on you. Out half the night. There are great times coming, Mary. Wait till you see. Ah, get along with your great times coming. Barmaids too. Tobacco shop girls. James Stevens' idea was the best. He knew them. Circles of tinsel that a fella couldn't drown on more than his own ring. Sinn Fein? Back out you get the knife. Hidden hand. Stand. The firing squad. Turnkey's daughter got him out of Richmond, off from Lusk. Putting up in the Buckingham Palace Hotel under their very noses. Garibaldi. You must have a certain fascination, Parnell. Arthur Griffith is a square-headed fellow, but he has no going him for the mob. Or gas about our lovely land. Gammon and spinach. Dublin Bakery Company's tearing. Debating societies. That republicanism is the best form of government. that the language question should take precedence of the economic question. Have your daughters inveigling them to your house. Stuff them up with meat and drink. Make 'em a goose. Here's a good lump of thyme seasoning under the apron for you. Have another quart of goose egg grease before it gets too cold. Half enthusiast. Penny roll and a walk with the band. No grace for the carver. The thought that the other chap pays best sauce in the world. Make themselves thoroughly at home. Show us over those apricots, meaning peaches. The not far distant day. Hamarul sun rising up in the northwest. His smile faded as he walked, a heavy cloud hiding the sun slowly, shadowing Trinity's surly front. Trams passed one another, ingoing, outgoing, clanging. Useless words. Things go on same, day after day, squads of police marching out, back, trams in, out. Those two loonies mooching about. Digging them carted off. Mean up here for a swollen belly on the bed groaning to have a child tugged out of her. One born every second somewhere. Other dying every second. Since I fed the birds 5 minutes, 300 kicked the bucket. Other 300 born, washing the blood off, all are washed in the blood of the Lamb, bawling ma. Cityful passing away, other cityful coming, passing away too, other coming on, passing on. Houses, lines of houses, streets, miles of pavements, piled up bricks, stones. Changing hands. This owner, that. Landlord never dies, they say. Other steps into his shoes when he gets his notice to quit. They buy the place up with gold and still they have all the gold. Swindling it somewhere. Piled up in cities, worn away age after age. Pyramids and sand. Built on bread and onions. Slaves Chinese wall. Babylon. Big stones left. Round towers. Rest rubble, sprawling suburbs, Jerville. Kirwan's mushroom houses built at breeze. Shelter, for the night. No one is anything. This is the very worst hour of the day. Vitality. Dull, gloomy, hate this hour. Feel as if I had been eating its food. Provost's house. The Reverend Dr. Salmon, Tim Salmon. Well tended in there, like a mortuary chapel. Wouldn't live in it if they paid me. Hope they have liver and bacon today. Nature powers of vacuum. The sun freed itself slowly and let glints of light among the silverware opposites in Walter Sexton's window by which John Howard Parnell passed, unseeing. There he is, the brother. Image of him. Haunting face. Now that's a coincidence. Course hundreds of times you think of a person and don't meet him. Like a man walking in his sleep. No one knows him. Must be a corporation meeting today. They say he never put on the city marshal's uniform since he got the job. Charlie Cavan used to come out on his high horse, cocked hat, puffed, powdered and shaved. Look at the woebegone walk of him. Eating a bad egg. Poet's eyes on ghost. I have a pain. Great man's brother, his brother's brother. He'd look nice on the city charger. Drop into the DBC probably for his coffee, play chess there. His brother used men as pawns. Let them all go to pot. Afraid to pass a remark on him. Freeze them up with that eye of his. That's the fascination, the name. All a bit touched. Mad Fanny and his other sister Mrs. Dickinson driving about with scarlet harness. both upright like Sergeant Immortal. Still David Sheehy beat him for South Meath, apply for the Chiltern Hundreds and retire into public life. The Patriots banquet, eating orangupiles in the park. Simon Deal said when they put him in Parliament that Parnell would come back from the grave and lead him out of the House of Commons by the arm of the twa-headed octopus, one of whose heads is the head upon which the ends of the world have forgotten to come, while the other speaks with a Scotch accent. The tentacles. They passed from behind Mr. Bloom along the curbstone, beard and bicycle. Young woman. And there he is too. Now that's really a coincidence. Second time. Coming events cast the shadows before. With the approval of the eminent poet, Mr. George Russell. That might be Lizzie Twigg was him. Hey, what does that mean? Initials perhaps. Albert Edward, Arthur Edmund, Alphonsus Ebed L. Esquire. What was he saying? The ends of the world with a Scotch accent. Tentacles, octopus. Something occult, symbolism. Holding forth. She's taking it all in. Not saying a word. To a gentleman in literary work. His eyes followed the high figure in homespun, beard and bicycle, a listening woman at his side. Coming from the vegetarian. Only vegetables and fruit. Don't eat a beefsteak. If you do, the eyes of that cow will pursue you through all eternity. They say it's healthier. Wind and watery though. Try it. Keep you on the run all day. Bad as a bloater. Dreams all night. Why do they call the thing that gave me nuts steak? Nutarians. Fruitarians. To give you the idea you were eating rump steak. Absurd. Salty too. The cook on soda. Keep you sitting by the tap all night. Her stockings are loose over her ankles. I detest that, so tasteless. Those literary ethereal people, they're all dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic. There's theories and there are. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that kind of food you see produces the like waves of the brain, the poetical. For example, one of those policemen sweating Irish into their shirts, you couldn't squeeze a line of poetry out of him. Don't know what poetry is even. Must be in a certain mood. The dreamy cloudy gull waves over the water's dull. He crossed at an Nassau street corner and stood before the window of Yeats and Son, pricing the field glasses. Or will I drop into Old Harris's and have a chat with young Sinclair? Well-mannered fellow. Probably at his lunch. Must get those old glasses of mine set right. Goer's lenses 6 guineas. Germans making their way everywhere. Sell on easy terms to capture trade. Undercutting. Might chance on a pair in the railway lost property office. Astonishing the things people leave behind them in trains and cloakrooms. What do they be thinking about? Women too. Incredible. Last year traveling to Ennis had to pick up that farmer's daughter's and hand it to her at Limerick Junction. Unclaimed money too. There's a little watch up there on the roof of the bank to test those glasses by. His lids came down the lower rims of his ears. Can't see it. If you imagine it's there, you can almost see it. Can't see it. He faced about and, standing between the awnings, held out his right hand at arm's length towards the sun. Wanted to try that often. Yes, completely. The tip of his little finger blotted at the sun's disk. Must be the focus where the rays cross. If I had black glasses. Interesting. There was a lot of talk about those sunspots when we were in Lombard Street West. Looking up from the back garden. Terrific explosions there. There will be a total eclipse this year, autumn sometime. Now that I come to think of it, that ball falls at Greenwich time. The clock is worked by an electric wire from Dunsink. Must go out there some first Saturday of the month. If I could get an introduction to Professor Jolie or learn up something about his family, that would do too. Man always feels complimented. Flattery when least expected. Nobleman proud to be descended from some king's mistress. His foremother. Laid on with the trowel. Cap in hand goes through the land. Not go in and blurt out what you know you're not to. What's parallax? Show this gentleman the door. Ah. His hand fell to his side again. Never know anything about it. Waste of time. Golf balls spinning about, crossing each other, passing. Same old ding-dong always. Gas solid, then whirled, then cold, then dead shell drifting around, frozen rock, like that pineapple rock. The moon. Must be a new moon out, she said. I believe there is. He went on by La Maison Claire. Wait. The full moon was the night we were Sunday fortnight exactly. There's a new moon. Walking down by the Toka. Not bad for a Fairview moon. She was humming. The young moon, she's beaming, love. The other side of her. Elbow, arm. Hey. Loud worm's lamp is gleaming, love. Touch. Fingers. Asking. Answer. Yes. Stop. Stop. If it was, it was. Mr. Bloom, quick breathing, slowly walking past Adam Cower. With a keep quiet relief his eyes took note. This is the street here, middle of the day of Bob Doran's battle shoulders. On his annual bend, M. Core said. They drink in order to say or do something our church has law fam. Up in the coombe with chummies and street walkers, and then the rest of the year sober as a judge.